Let me give you guys a bias today.
Okay.
No problem.
Astrologically, we should get a down market today.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
What? Was that? Look at me. I need to ask you something. My, what is the savings?
Okay, we've prepared a new set of charts here so that the particular timeframes that Denise likes to look at and the timeframes I need to run the fib work are both showing up, so it'll be easier to reference things. And right now, obviously, we open down. We bounced off that extension that I had put in as the target near the close yesterday. And let's see what we might have underneath that. Okay, since we're obviously moving downwards, I'm going to set up resistance on the 3-minute chart so we can take a look at what may be a possible entry if we get a pullback. And I think shortly Denise will give us a rundown of what the different time frames are that you're looking at and how she uses them.
Here you see we changed the. Oh.
Did you get a trade?
1 second. Okay, just so you guys know, what we did was we made, Mark said we made new charts just so you can see exactly what I'm looking at, and you can also see simultaneously what he's doing. So just notice that my charts are in the top. That's the 250 volume, if I'm right, yeah. This is the 500 and 1000 volume. The 14 CCI for the 500 is the first blue. Thanks, Ron. This is the 500 14 CCI, the 500, the 50 CCI for the 500, and then this is the same thing for the 1000. This is a standalone 3000 chart. This is Mark's charts, okay? So this is just how we set it up so that it'll be easier for you to just kind of, instead of having to strain yourself and all crowd around my laptop and then look at the chart, you can just see everything here. And so as the market goes, we'll be able just to use this to point out the patterns on the CCI. Okay, obviously right now, the market opened in a downtrend. We're gonna look for some setups off of Mark's work, okay, so.
She said you have a unique indicator.
Okay, right now here too, on the 3,000, it is triggering a 50-34 short. We're obviously far away from the 34 EMA, so what we want to do is look to a smaller time frame to get a pullback so that hopefully we can enter a swing, and if we have a good downtrend day, we'll have a nice intraday hold. So I'll let you guys know. I'm going to keep an eye on that, and if we can get a good entry, we'll announce it here. I'll get in and see if we get a nice trend day. Well, if you look at the 3,000, I mean, this is your 14. It's already way down here, but the 50 is just crossing, and price has crossed through the 34. The bar has, we're making a new bar here, but obviously on a swing trade, you don't want to enter like you would on a smaller time frame because you're 2 points away, basically, from the 34 EMA. So even if you were right and you set a point stop, that normal retrace would just take you out of the trade. So the logical thing to do would be to go back to our 233 tick or 250 V, look for a setup there that's roughly around 82 if we can get that lucky, and hopefully we'll have some good resistance and we'll just enter the trade and we'll hold a contract or two for with this in mind. So what we'll do is we'll take, if you're trading multiple contacts, we'll enter with 3, we'll take our first target, and then we'll just hold according to because Mark will graciously give us long-term targets and we'll start holding for that. Okay, so as soon as it sets up, I'll let you guys know.
At the moment, the long-term, the intraday targets to the downside would be the extensions. Remember, the extensions are targets, so we're looking at 669, or 670, I guess, even. Depending on swings that come up, if we get a little retracement, we'll be able to have other targets that might be a little bit even tastier, but 670 is pretty good at the moment if we break that 786 retracement. And I'm going to focus for the moment on setting up the 3-minute resistance. So if we do get an entry signal, we'll have something that we know can't be broken in order to maintain the downtrend.
Oh gosh, look at that. You have diverted. Yeah, okay. Kind of watching the 50 on the 3,000 at the 100 line, which we're going to see if it crosses through. If it doesn't cross through, that'll give us a better shot at getting a decent sized pullback to get in.
I need a couple more 15-minute bars in order to do timing. I'd like to be able to do timing to see if we can project a likely termination point to this decline. But considering the length of the prior declines, I only have, let's say 4 bars in this decline, and I think that the timing just by eyeballing it would be a little bit dodgy. It really wouldn't give us specific information, and that's the kind of thing that you learn over time to eyeball. With another 15-minute bar, I think I'll start working on projecting it if we keep extending in that direction. That's 15 minutes.
Okay, on the 3,050, it looks like we're getting some hesitation at the negative 100. Looking for a hook back up, at least steep enough to give us a setup on the 250 or the 233 tick. That would probably come in the way of a 50-14-0. So let's see. Right now I'm looking at the 3,000 volume. If you see here, now if you see here, we're kind of getting held up at the negative 100 line. What I'm hoping for is a failure to cross. So this way the market will start to at least retrace up a little bit, and then we'll be looking on this time frame and or this, whichever one you prefer, for an entry. And like I said, you know, you want to keep in mind, you don't have any this is the 3-minute resistance right here, so hopefully we'll get it into this, it'll hold, and we can get it a short. That's ideally what we want to see.
Can you talk for a minute about the use of the different time frames, whatever?
Sure.
Because one of the concerns I have about, not your methodology, but in general, it seems like we'll say, okay, we have kind of the direction here, and then you end up, I don't want to say you, but any methodology will say, well, let's go look at this time frame or this time frame, and I'll see if there's something fit.
No.
Well, it's like, okay, we're just going to put up some chart that makes it look like.
No, I mean, anybody who's, I think some people have experience with my time frames. I use the same time frames all the time, and I don't ever look at anything else. This is what I look at. And the logic is, and it's not as many time frames as you think. The 3,000 is the time frame that dictates overall trend. So any trade I take on any of my smaller time frames are always in the direction of that chart. Obviously, the premise being that the bigger the time frame, the more reliable the trend. The 500 and the 233 tick are used together, and that's because often they're very close in the way that they appear. They almost look identical. But sometimes what will happen is, and this is my main trigger chart, sometimes what happens is you'll get a signal on here, but it doesn't show up on the 500. So what I've done over time is I've just said, okay, the only thing I'm using the 500 for is to confirm my thoughts. So basically, if I see a setup here, I want to see it on the 500 or I don't take it. Okay, so that's the only use the 500 has. If you like, you don't have to use the 233 tick at all and just take your signals off the 500. That's fine. The 1,000 is just a median time frame. So there's really 3 time frames. It's the 500, the 1,000, the 3,000. And when I'm looking at the 1,000, all I want to see is that it's just in the same direction as the other 2. That's it. So I just want all 3 to align, because I find that when there's disagreement, there's uncertainty in the market, and that's when I get whipped out of the trades. The 250, now, each chart has a certain purpose. The 250, I like to swing trade, and I like to take trades off of this chart. But like I said, if we were to enter on this bar, a retracement is just going to take us out. So normally what I do is, if this wasn't the open, you start watching as prices starting to weaken. You see your CCI starting to weaken, you'll just jump here, take the setup to get the entry. After I'm in, I don't look at that anymore.
Okay, that's why I was wondering, because you had just mentioned that you typically use the 33 tick chart for signals, and you're saying, but there is a scenario where you use a 250
Right.
volume for your signal
That's
trade?
because sometimes in the market, and you know that you'll be in a trend where it's just flying, and you need something that's sensitive to the price change to get you in. And I have found that the tick chart or the 500 volume, sometimes it's just too big and you don't get enough of a retracement to get in on the trend. So rather than not get the trade, we'll look at something smaller just to help us pinpoint an entry. And also, too, some people choose to use the 250V and not use these time frames at all. So I'm trying to accommodate, you know, and mention, and you know, hey, you can look here or you can look here. It depends on what you're trading, because not everybody. You can use whatever time frames you like. Just have a small, middle, and high time frame. You know, I mean, that's why the charts do the 3 time frames. You know, so you can look at. So that's the reason. But I don't ever, oh, well, let's throw up a 3-minute or let's throw up a 5-minute, or I don't do that.
Yeah, no, but I was just curious because you said, okay, if we'll look for a signal on the 233 tick chart or the 250 volume, it's like, well,
Right.
well, that to me is like, okay, I'm going to pick a chart that gives me a signal.
No, well,
And
I'm going to pick,
just-
well,
So we got Mark's 3-minute chart up there, so it's like, okay.
no. See, understand something. Mark can't run volume charts and tick charts because you cannot do timing. So I look at his 15-minute chart,
Yeah,
but I apply it to my
stuff
3,000.
is just, that's so I can do this work on it. The 3 and the 15.
We're not
This-
taking trades off of those time frames.
So which one can trigger charge?
I'm sorry.
The 250 or the tick?
250 or the ticket. Like I said, it depends, because, you know, sometimes the market doesn't give you a tremendous pullback to get in. Like right now, we're looking, we want to be short. We need to find a signal. So if the market's only going to give us a big enough pullback to get a signal on the 250, are we going to say, oh, no, we'll pass because we have to have it on this time frame? You know, sometimes you're just, that's all you're going to get. So if you're trying to get in on a swing here and you want to time it as best you can to get the best entry you can, you're going to use the smallest time frame possible. You know, so you understand now the different. We don't use his charts to trade off of. It's just so he needs that to run his levels.
I can do the price work on, and anyone can do the price levels, the Fibonacci work on the volume and tick charts. I will sometimes run the price work on the 233 tick. If we're coming off a price in time, there's a reversal that looks like it's happening. Sometimes there are swings that form faster on the 233 than they will show up on the 3-minute. So I will occasionally run it there, but it is impossible to run timing on a tick or volume chart because of the time element. So basically, you're just seeing 4 charts for Denise and 2 charts for me.
And really, we don't usually have it set up, but we just wanted you to be able to see simultaneously what he's doing and what I'm doing. It's not, like I said, we don't sit here with 18 charts and say, okay, you know, that's not the way it goes. Okay, so here we're getting, like I said, flattening at the -100 line on the 50 CCI. So, and we are starting to get a little bit of a pullback. There's no setup yet, but on our 233 tick, notice we're still under the 0 line on the 50. The 14 is crossing up. What we want to see is it cross up through the +100 and then back down so we can get in. Here the signal is already starting to form. You see you have the 14 above the +100, your 50 is under 0, and ideally if the market's going to start pulling back, we will get a 50-14-0 here. It might, you know, it might very well set up here as well, so we're just going to watch, and that's basically what we're looking for now is just an entry short.
What's the trigger on the 50-14 on the 250V?
You want 14 CCI to cross back down through the +100 and through the 0 line. Yeah, I mean, it'll feel that you're doing it a little bit late, but if it triggers, there's more than enough to get out. I do. I mean, some people don't. I personally, yes, I do.
I was just working with the timing tools a little bit, and you can see I connected highs and lows with the 2-point tool. Here's a high to a high to extend forward in time, a low to a high to extend forward, and I also took a prior decline using the 3-point tool, high to low, projected from the new high. And you'll see we have a confluence 11 to 11:30. We have 3 lineups here. That is sufficient for me to say that focus on 11:15 New York time for a potential low if we're hitting price support at that point. Yes, well, you basically look back with as much data as you'd like on the 15-minute chart. 15-minute to me, I think 15-minute works very well for timing because you can get specific enough that you can land within a 15-minute period where it focuses. And you basically put as much data as you want on there and connect all the way back in time as long as you can make the highs and lows far enough apart in the past that you get extensions in the current time. In other words, if you do a high and low that are close together from yesterday, it's not going to extend into today. Try it, and you'll see what I mean if you experiment with it a bit.
That's all my problem. It's so subjective. You never know about doing it.
It really isn't subjective. You just look for outstanding highs and lows, and you can't really cheat at that. There's no way you can fudge timing. Because if you just take the highs and lows that pop out at you and connect the dots, highs to lows, lows to highs, and so on, highs to highs, lows to lows, connect them, there will be a place where they line up or not. If they don't line up within one bar to one side or the other, if they don't line up, you don't have timing. If they line up, they line up. You can't take the wrong, if you take a bar in the middle of a swing, that's wrong, because I'm talking about taking outstanding lows and outstanding highs. That's all you have to really focus on with it. And by the way, everyone here, if you want to experiment with these tools, you're welcome at any point in time to email me a chart, and I'll take a look and go like, that's not a high. I'll be nice about it. I'll try once I'm awake, but no, I'm really glad to look at your work. Nothing gives me more pleasure than seeing someone go, okay, I got it.
Okay, basically what's happening is, like I noted before, you had failure to cross the negative 100 on the higher time frame in which I anticipated getting a bounce. Okay, 250V is not any longer something we want to look at for the pullback because it's not triggering properly. So now we're looking over here and we're just waiting to see if we can get this set up. The 34 EMA on here is about 681.80. So I'm really looking for something that would give me, obviously I'm not looking for 681.80, but I'm looking for a nice, okay, he has, it's here.
Denise, what do you mean it's not triggering properly?
What I wanted to see was a 5014 entry, and what's happening is the 50 is looking to cross the 0 line. It hasn't yet, but what I'm thinking is that the pullback, we might get more. So I'm still watching, but I think we're going to have more of a chance of getting. No, but I think that it's going to be more realistic that it comes on the 133. So we're just going to watch that. We're also watching the 500 as confirmation, and it's pretty much set up in the same pattern.
What are the other CCIs on the 500 chart?
I don't overlay because I have visually, I just can't. So this is the 500, 14 and 50, and that's the 1,000, 14 and 50. Because I should overlay them, but I just need to practice, focusing on that. So I just do it separate for now, so that I can explain it, properly.
So this thing that you trade mainly of the volume chart.
Oh, yeah, I only use one tick chart, and the rest are volume. I don't use any minute charts at all. But again, as I keep stressing, you look at how CCI acts at the 100 lines. You get that flattening. It helps you be able to anticipate with some degree of certainty that, hey, this is happening, so, we're not going to keep selling off. We're going to get at least a temporary bounce. And that's why I tell you guys, watch those 100 lines because they really can tell a lot into what the market's doing. Well, here you go. You're getting your setup on the 250V, which I was discounting. We have not crossed the 0 line yet. So we got to wait for the bar to close. And I'm going to come on over here and see if we can.
We have a projector for the range on that as well.
11:15 is the potential timing low.
It'd be nice if we can get Carlos to put some sort of thing in there, when you've got all these various scales in it, that can kind of weight those scales and determine where the greatest confluence is of time projections.
Carlos and I are working on additional timing tools that will help to run the timing more rapidly and automatically, and also to automatically label which timing combinations, which ratios should jump out at you. We're working on that right now.
Yeah. You gotta really be patient, wait for that bar to finish printing. I don't know if is there a way in FT to find out how much you are into the bar?
Yes.
If you want to
Here,
fudge it
look.
a little bit, you go ahead and you want to, you can see where you are in the bar. I mean, if you're,
It's about to just closed.
and if you're in a little, okay, there we go. So we have, okay, I'm in 679.10. Huh? Oh, am I wrong? Okay, I'm in at 679.10. Something, okay, this is going to be a challenge. To talk like.
Don't bother.
Okay. What I'm going to be watching here now, like I said, I'm in at 679.10. What I want to watch is for the 50 CCI on this time frame to make its way through the negative 100. I'm also going to be watching my median time frame, since that CCI is laying on the negative 100. And ideally, of course, I want to see basically all the CCIs that I'm looking at are at that vulnerable point. So I want to see them go through to confirm my trade is right. So I use an initial stop of 1 point that is a crash stop. It just allows, it's big enough to allow me the flexibility of letting the pattern take me out rather than having a price take me out.
And I just went to the 3-minute and put in targets for the short term. In other words, we could expect to see a pause, unless I mean, of course, in a strong trend, it's going to rocket through, and we look at the 15-minute targets, but we can expect to see a possible pause at 677.50 and 676.70, but we have to break through these retracement levels. Again, that was done by using the retracement tool and going from this low to this high. Generally, once you break the 786 level, which here is 678.50, you're good to go to the targets, but we need to break through this support.
Okay, just forgive me if I'm quiet for a few seconds. Okay, I just want the trade to get off and run, and we can talk some more about what's going on. Which is my thing. Okay, here you see we're starting to get at least what looks like an attempt to go lower. We're still laying flat here, which is kind of concerning to me. I really would have liked to have seen it just really through. That's the trade that you really want. So now here I'm kind of, it's kind of a nail biter. I have to stay in. There's really no reason telling me to get out. I'm just going to have to be patient about it. And I traditionally don't move my stop until I get my first target. Once my first target is reached, then I will move everything else to break even. 678.60. My stop, I entered at 679.10, so my stop is set at 680.10. As I said, it's a 1 point crash stop. Meaning that, like I said, I don't want to have like a 6-tick stop and then all of a sudden the market noise just hits my 6 ticks and my CCI pattern is still great and support and resistance are still where they're supposed to be and the price takes me out. Because that, it's happened to all of us. You have a stop set, it hits your stop and then just immediately reverses. So I figure 1 point is wide enough that my trade can withstand just regular market noise. I very rarely take an actual 1 point stop. My average stop is a -4 or -5.
So you I'm just curious because you're obviously using a fixed money stop, but there's a, like a swing high that you're, in theory would stop, it would be a good place to put a stop.
Well, that, and that's part, what I like, I don't follow swing highs and lows myself, because I'm getting in on a CCI-based pattern, that's how I would like to, because the price bars, I mean, I would rather not focus on those. What I want to focus on is the reason, is my pattern still valid? Is my pattern telling me, you know what, you're not going to get what you expect out of the market, get out now. Like, for example, if we start to hook up on the top of this negative 100 line, that would be motivation for me just to say, you know what, I have my 3 contracts on, it's not crossing, let me get out. And in this way, it's based on the pattern. It's not based on, well, I'm down 5 ticks right now, or whatever it is. The pattern was a 54.10. 54.10. The pattern was a 54.10, based on the fact that my higher time frame is in a short. So I waited for a pullback. As I said, we were looking at the 130, the 233 or the 250 for an entry. It happened to set up simultaneously on both. I waited for the bar to close, put my order in as a limit, and got filled at 679.10. You're welcome. Okay, on this pulse down, if we don't go through the negative 100 line, I'm going to take off 2 and start moving my stop because I really want to see it go through because we're not going to go anywhere unless it crosses that negative 100. Right, 233. You see how it's starting? It's laying support on the negative 100 line. When you're short, that's not what you want to see. You want to see that cross. You want to see conviction through that 100. Once you get through that 100, there's room for more downside, and you can use the hook back up as a signal that, hey, again, the run is going to be temporarily over. We're going to get a rest or a pullback, and that's where typically I use the exit for my runner. If we could get there, it would be nice to show you. That's one of my exit strategies, is a cross back over. But of course, okay, wait. Okay, I've hit my first target at 78.10. My stops are now at break even. Okay, so everybody see what I did? I got my first target. I put my stop at break even. Ironically, we've only crossed down through the negative 100 here. Okay, we're still waiting on this, we're still looking. And back to what I said, what I'm looking at my time frames, I'm looking for them all to kind of fall into place. The 1,050 CCI is still laying flat on the negative 100. The 133 tick is, here we go. We're starting to get more movement on the 3,000. We're heading into quite a bit of support here. So we might want to look, and we're heading into a 3-minute target. So we might want to look at our CCI and say, okay, is there a reason that we should be looking at this as a good target for T2? Okay, do you guys see anything in the CCI that would say that that's a good place, or do you think we can hold on and maybe get to the next target?
You don't really understand where the first target is.
It's a predetermined target that I use. My first target when I enter the market is at +1. And that's the +1 is based on just me going over X amount of trades and seeing with my criteria what the average.
Okay, so you just
Okay.
start with a
Sold
standard
out.
-1 stop and a +1 target, and then you monitor the manage it after that. Or these other secondary.
Okay.
Then you
I'm sorry.
stop down to break even or the other.
Right, once I get my first target, my stop goes to break even, and then I manually, according to such, I'll adjust to follow down. I trail it myself because I just haven't found a good auto trailer. But here we are, now we're at the first target here. Coincidentally, we're very close to this cluster of support on the higher time frame, so if you're in 2 contracts, yeah, this is a good place to start thinking about taking the second one off, okay? Yeah, and I mean, now what you can do is you've locked in quite a nice trade on your 2 contracts, and your 3rd contract now is at break even. So we can afford to hold on a little bit and start, maybe, if we're lucky, eyeball the 15-minute work. You know, so we're at break even. As long as the CCIs stay below the 100 line, we're good.
Why don't you put fib numbers on the 250 volume?
Well, because the swing would be the same. In other words, if I were to, the question was, why don't I put the fib numbers on the 250 volume?
I'm gonna get a drink.
The swing I would use to get, for instance, the extensions, the targets, would be identical. So you just have the same numbers showing up on that chart, and I have fewer data points. I don't have to scroll back as far.
Okay, I'm out another one.
You what?
I'm out another one, so I have 1 runner left.
Okay.
And like I said, I'm waiting, and I'm gonna keep my eye on this area here. Okay, so the worst case that's gonna happen now is we're gonna get break even, or we're gonna end up down here at some point of the day.
Why did you get out? Did you hit mark?
Marks, we have support, target. It's logical.
When you have this extension, this 1618 extension, was simply taking this low to this high and extending downwards 161%. That corresponds with the support here, the Fibonacci support, which is a retracement of going from this low to this high. When you have that kind of overlapping Fibonacci work from different time frames, different swings, it lends power to it. So it means that we have to pay more attention to this 1618 on the short time frame, or the longer time frame work here. The point is it overlaps, so it's going to make this support stronger, and it's something that we have to pay attention to. If you notice also on a couple of time frames here, my 233 tick up here and my 3-minute, significant divergence is showing up. Look at the 50 on the 233 tick, and it's crossing up now above the 100 line. So this is a warning that this support, again, it's from different swings. When you have Fibonacci work from different swings landing at the same level, something to note. Strong trend, it's going to break through anyway, but the point is, based on the time frame you're trading, is it going to retrace enough first that you want to get out of the trade and look for another entry? In our case, generally, yes. Generally, if we get a significant bounce off that kind of cluster, we want to get out, not ride through the retracement, and look for another entry instead. Thank you.
I just want to make sure we're on beverage.
I'm sorry.
I mean, is that price pause at those levels?
Well, if the levels are under the market, we call it support. Yeah, it's resisting breaking through, but the terminology generally is if it's a level that's above the market, it's resistance. If it's below the market, it's support.
Okay.
That second contract you got out at what price?
Let me look. I think it was 76.50. I mean 77.50. Let me just take a look at my BT and it'll tell me. I need to do full screen. Yeah, it was 676.80. Okay. Now that the 3,000 volume has crossed the negative 100 line, I don't know. I think that the bar still needs to close to confirm that. But since we've closed there, I'm definitely inclined to hold that runner and try to get down into here. The only thing that would change that for me would be a hook and back through. I am a little bit concerned that we're starting to develop divergences, if you can notice that, on the 50 CCIs. You're getting lower price lows, and the CCI is not going low at all. So that's something that you want to kind of keep your eye on. 250, we're below the 100. 133 tick, we're right at it. So I'm really kind of just going to keep my eye on this, and I'm going to keep my eye on this 679 area, because that's where I'm going to be break. I mean, it just so happens that that's my break even right there. So
The 679, just to clarify, because I popped that. I'm trying to not interfere with Denise when she's talking, because she's doing the actual trading at this point. But I want you guys to not think these numbers appeared magically. 679 is symmetry resistance. Red is symmetry. It's 100% of this swing, low to high, projected from the new low. So that just appeared magically because this swing just happened.
because
So-
Mark wanted to make it look pretty for me.
Yes, because I was trying to make it look pretty for Denise. As each of these swings within the context of the downtrend, each corrective move occurs, you have to then fill that in as new resistance. And again, this is a downtrend, so we want to take the corrective move low to high and project from the new low. And of course, I did set this to keep live so that if we get a new low, that'll move down with it automatically. But we don't want that violated to maintain the idea of a downtrend.
Show me which little icon you used. Just point to it on the side. Okay.
If you look in the workbook materials,
Yeah.
you'll see I actually put the toolbar up and circled it and said, this is the thing.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Were you, a question for me or Mark? Okay.
Right. Well, okay, the question was, do I have to wait for it to form a pivot? About 2 months ago, yes, because there was no keep live function. In other words, I would have had to wait for this to define a low to project off of. Otherwise, it would break in about 10 seconds and form a new low, and then all these numbers would be irrelevant because I'd have to project again from the new low. But with Fibonacci Trader, because Carlos made the keep live function, you can project it at any point in time, set it to keep live, and if a new low forms, if that is not the defined low here in the swing, if a new low forms, the numbers are going to move down automatically anyway. So it's actually more relaxing this way because you don't have to wait and stare at the chart and go, I have to wait for the low to be defined before I can do the number. Because the number it's really not, I mean, you can do it at any point in time, and the program will update. What I did have to wait for, though, was for this low, if you look at the chart, I had to wait for this low to be violated. Because until that low is violated, I don't know that we're still in a downtrend and that it's a corrective swing. I need to know it's a downtrend in order to take that as a corrective move and project from a new low. So once a new low is made, I can do the projection, set it to keep live, and there you go.
Mark, is that a violation of the close?
No.
Just trying to get one.
Mark, does the Uber line work on the retracement tool
Yes.
also?
Yes, it does. And that's very important because the keep live also works on the retracements, and because I use the retracement tool for my extensions, it allows me to, for instance, we have this extension here that's holding. I did that by going from this low to this high with the retracement tool. Now, if this high had not been defined, if the high had been made a little higher, I would have had to, 2 months ago, erase the extensions and do it over again. Now I can do that whenever I feel like it, set to keep live, and when the market reverses, the extensions will be set automatically due to the good graces and hard work of Carlos.
Acosta. Acosta. Okay, basically what's happening is we're getting I was right to be concerned about the CCIs not crossing the negative 100s. We're getting another retracement. We could possibly be getting another 50-14-0 setup. If you have your runner like I do, this is a place where you could add if you choose to. That last trade got me a little discombobulated, so I'm going to just keep my runner and hold on for a second and just kind of try to absorb what the market's doing here. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves and start making... Am I any reason why I'm discombobulated? No market reasons. Because I took a trade and then all of a sudden I got defocused and didn't know where I was for a second. So I'm just trying to come down from that. Anyway, like I said, I would really want to... My main basis for not wanting to jump into this trade, I just joked with Mark, but honestly and truly, I'm bothered by this failure to cross through. I'm bothered by the divergence that we're seeing. We're seeing it on 1, 2, 3 different time frames. We've got this huge cluster of support here. That's kind of got me concerned. So unless we got a steeper pull back up, I'm just going to kind of wait and let the market tip its hand a bit. We had a very nice trade. If we did nothing else for the rest of the day, we're in good shape. So, you know, we don't have to, we can be picky.
It doesn't mean we're going to plan to not have another trade.
Okay, well, everybody have a nice day.
Yeah, the sun's out. And remember what I said before. This is very, very important. The 3-minute extension, in other words, this low to this high, extended downwards 1618, 161.8%, overlapped all these major retracements from a key low. In other words, it's really a standout low on this chart to the new high. When you get that kind of overlap from different time frames, different types of Fibonacci work, retracements and extensions, it is pretty important that if the downtrend is going to continue, we want to see that violated, and it's almost a certainty that you'll see a significant pause, because the work is from different time frames, different swings, and all the swings are pointing to right here is something that you have to look at. We don't have timing low right now, but the price work alone is saying pay attention. But still, based on this work, the downtrend is considered intact unless at least the 679 is broken.
Okay, we are getting set up on the 233 tip. If we get the setup, what? Is it not on? Okay. Looks like we're getting the setup on the 233 tick. The setup's happening into 3-minute resistance. If we get it, we'll
What would be the setup? The 14 class?
50-14.
Yeah, no,
I said that before, though. Okay, again, you want to notice we're looking at the 3,000. Our 50 has kind of hooked up and is threatening that line, so we want to be cognizant of that. And like I said, we have this cluster here. We have this maybe crossing. We have the divergence still intact. We might be getting into one of those areas where we're just going to consolidate for a while.
Sorry? Okay. Great. Thanks. Yes. The question was, why do I use a 15-minute chart instead of the 13-minute? Because the concept of timing, the timing work, Robert Miner wrote about this. It's important to disregard the overnight action. Okay, the overnight swings are irrelevant to what happens during the regular trading hours. 15 minutes divides evenly into the regular trading session. There were 27 bars in 27 15-minute bars in the day. If I were to use a 13-minute bar, you end up with, I think it's 29 regular bars, full bars, and then there's one bar that's like 3 minutes and 10 seconds. And so the whole concept of timing gets thrown out the window because you have a bar printing that is not a complete period of time. Yeah.
Interesting. You're looking at the 3-minute. Notice that price now is starting to get, not starting to, is kind of wedged in between the two areas. Again, as we were saying yesterday, when we saw this happen, we ended up just kind of getting like that movement just back and forth. And it's a pretty good distance. It's a tradable distance. So ideally what we want to do is maybe try to get a setup a little bit higher so that even if it isn't a range, we can kind of play the two lines. And, it's nice that it's 2.5 points away. But like yesterday, I think it was like maybe a point away, and that's the kind of thing you want to avoid. When you see this, you want to look at the distance and see if it's worth trading. If, for example, for the day we were stuck in that area, is it worth your while?
Which charts are 24-hour and which charts are daily?
The only chart I have that's not 24-hour at this point up there is the 15-minute, the lower right-hand side.
Is it? Yeah. On 3 minutes?
Mark, why is the 3-minute not the 24? I mean, why is the 3 minutes?
I don't really care too much about the 3-minute being pit or not, because I don't run timing much on the 3-minute. And if I were to run timing on it, I did yesterday when I was in the back, just because the market was so slow. I was trying to see when we might get out of a particular range of congestion. If I were to run timing on it, the swings I would choose would be all from today anyway. So because if I went back to yesterday on the 3-minute and I took a high and low, it wouldn't the extensions wouldn't land into today. It would all be yesterday.
So there's no reason why they all could be day sessions?
Yes, there is, because I like the CCIs to not have a gap issue. In other words, I like to consider I use the CCI myself on the 3-minute, even though Denise doesn't. For my own trading, I consider the 100 lines and divergences on the 3-minute to be fairly important. And it's also just force of habit. I've been using it for years, and I just don't like that gap to affect the CCI.
In case some of you are wondering why I'm still holding on to my runner, I just, because I see that the charts are going back up, and I don't want you guys to think that that's the appropriate thing to do when you're taking a small time frame trade. You should have been out because this didn't cross the 100 lines, But my motivation is the higher time frame. What my intention is to hold that one contract as hopefully the runner for the day, if indeed this breaks out and we get a trend to the downside. I will exit if this crosses above the negative 100 on the 3,000. That's why I'm holding it. I just want you guys to know, if it was just a normal 233 tick trade, I would have been out already. It's just my intention to hold it for a swing trade to see if we can get something like we did yesterday.
Well, let me ask you that, are there the other trades, obviously today it was because the 3,000 was below the minus 100. Are there other trades that start because the 3,000 is under the 0 line, and then you look
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what happened this morning. Unfortunately, what happened is the opening bar caused the 5034 on the higher time frame. And again, like I said, this is the opening bar right here, this big bar. So you see how far away this would have been your trigger bar, the one that my hand is on right now. That would have been your entry bar. Any other time frame, you would have entered the following bar, right? But in this case, this is like a 2-point bar. And you're 2 points away from your 34 EMA. We know with the 34 EMA, price often likes to retrace upwards towards it. So if you had entered and you would put a 1-point stop in, I don't know, I can't see it exactly, but on this pulse up, this might have stopped you out. So that's the reasoning for not entering just off the 3,000 itself. And that's the reason for going to a lower time frame to try and time the entry.
I understand that, but you're saying that today,
Mm-hmm.
keeping that runner on,
Yeah.
because the CCI is below the minus 100.
Right.
Then that implied to me that there are other trades that you get into where the CCI is not below the minus 100, and so you have that third runner.
Okay, no, what I meant, what I should clarify what I mean. I am holding on to it because remember what I said to you, if you're in a trade and you're in a short, you want to see CCI cross through the negative 100. The exit would be a recross back above. It just so happens that on this higher time frame, it's below the negative 100, so I feel confident that at some point we're going to get lower lows. Okay, so I'm willing to hold on to that fact and not worry too much about the little fluctuations, provided that the 50 CCI stays under the negative 100. An exit signal for me would be a cross back above. I'm not in it just because, I'm in it because it's set up a 5034, and in my mind it's trending well because the CCI did what a short should do.
If we had gotten in because of the 5034, because the 50 went below zero, then what we would be looking for instead would be, we'd want the 100 line, minus 100, to violate to the downside.
Well, let me just show you an example. See here, this was yesterday. We got a 5034 cross to the upside, right? Price is relatively close to the 34 EMA. So ideally, we would have gotten in. We're in our swing trade now. CCI goes up above 100. Price is still going up. CCI staying above 100. Price is still going up. The CCI crosses through the 100. This cross is my exit on my last contract because the crosses to me indicate that the momentum is waning and we're going to get a pullback. Not necessarily a change in trend, but you see, look, I mean, this is 86 roughly, 84, that's a 2-point pullback. If you're long, you want to try and conserve at least some of that. So do you understand? It's not, I'm not taking the trade, wow, because we're down under the 100. That's just the natural progression of CCI that I want to see when I'm in a short. And the fact that this is a high time frame and that this move was able to do this leads me to believe that quite possibly we will break this area and get down to these targets. And that's what I'm holding for.
Yesterday, it looks like that long trade that before it was triggered. Shortly after it triggered, the 50 crossed below the plus 100 line.
Yeah.
And then you would have gotten out later.
Well, I mean, I certainly might have exited one of my contracts there, sure. I definitely, I mean, that would have caused me, not everything. I mean, you have to have some kind of leniency. You have to see what's going on in the other time frames. I mean, but the runner is what I'm talking about, because the runner, that's your last man standing. So I have devised for the longer time frame 3 possible scenarios. A hook from extreme with a trend line break might be a reason I would want to get out of the trade. A 100-line cross. And what I do also is the cross, sometimes you'll get a cross, it's mid-bar, and then all of a sudden it'll go back down, and then when the bar is finished printing, it looks like a little reject or a ZLR or whatever you want to call it. So what I try to do is determine how much am I up in this trade right now. Okay, I'm on a big time frame. Can I afford to wait for the bar to close the CCI over, or should I get out on a cross? And generally, if you're on a smaller time frame, and my rule of thumb is this, if you're up over a point on your runner, wait for the bar to close. Because nothing's worse than getting out and all of a sudden, after the fact, it looks like a little reject. If you're up only 5 ticks, 6 ticks, get out at the cross, you know what I mean? Because you can always, if it decides to do a reject, you can always add one back in. And especially if you have support or resistance, I mean, it's a perfectly permissible entry to add into a position or to jump back into a position that's already in progress, especially if you have this, like for example, if you have this support, this resistance here, and you get a 100-line reject, add one back in, sure, why not? You're going to get probably a new low or something like that, even if it's by a tick or two.
Note what's happening now in the 3-minute Fibonacci levels. We have levels on both sides. We're now just again testing the 679 level, which was the 100% projection of this prior corrective swing. In other words, low to high projected from low. If we keep bouncing back and forth between these levels, we have a visual indication of being range-bound, extremely tight at the moment, and we wouldn't really be looking for trades until one side or the other breaks. If the 679 breaks, though, to the upside, it's telling us that the downtrend is over with on the short time frame for the moment. And that might actually, if that happens, that might coincide with Denise's 3,000 volume minus 100 line break on the 50 CCI. On the chart, and in order to project that, you need to use the tools in a slightly different way. And normally at this sort of presentation, I don't go into the details of that because it can be very confusing because the tools are applied differently. However, I did record a webinar that's on my website about how to project the two-step using these tools, and my website, I think you probably all have the address mjbraun.net. So if you're using these tools and you'd like to see how to get additional support or resistance based on specific Fibonacci price relationships within swings, within these sort of corrective swings, just check out my site and the list of webinars will be growing. Both. No, the expansion and extensions. You were there. What? He didn't pick it up. No,
I do. I'm the walking. Does anybody have any questions while we're just sitting?
Are you watching the 34 MA on the tick and the 500?
Yeah, it's starting to possibly trigger a 50-34 long.
What would you need to take along?
I would really like this to be closed over. I really would.
Closed over the.
And if you look at like my median time frame, it's at that decision point. So I would like to see that really happen before taking the long. That's just, like I said, somebody like Dr. Bob, he doesn't believe in always, adhering to the higher time frame. So he might go ahead and take a trade like this. But, he's very fast to get out if he's wrong. So, yeah, he might take a trade like this. But very interesting to notice here, your 233 tick is setting up. But look at my confirmation chart. It's kind of going flat under the 0 line here. So this is what I mean by the subtle differences between the two time frames, and this is why I use the two time frames. Because, go ahead. Setting up a long. 50-34 long. If we were to take this, if we were going to, take a counter trend trade, we would want our 500V to confirm, right? 500 is not confirming. It's going flat here. So we wouldn't be doing anything regardless, even if we were going to take it, we're not doing anything until that sets up. Now, if, for example, this does not set up and this sets up and fails, what's going to happen is if this sets up long and this does not set up long, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, go back and sit down and start looking around at my charts and anticipate a failure. And I would be ready to jump in on the short when it sets up. So a lot of times, you know, it might set up and run up a little bit. This may never set up, but we have the time to wait to get back in with the trend. And also, what we have resistance. So that's fuel, more fuel to say that that long will fail. Well, for a long, your 50 has to cross and close above the 0 line. Price has to cross and close above the 34 EMA. For a short, price has to close below, and price has to close below. It's it's very simple. And then what you would do is once that bar closes, you would enter the open of the following bar. Or if you like to be close to the MA, like I kind of do, you put a limit in, a few ticks away, wait for the market noise, and get picked up. That also eliminates having to have, trying to figure out what your stop should be. And, am I giving it too much? I know a couple of people that I work with, what they'll do is say this is the trigger bar, and you're 4 ticks away from the 34 EMA, and your entry is 79.10. They'll put their entry for the long at 79.80. Just that 2 ticks will make the difference in their trade for their psyche. So that's also something you want to see. Okay, you have obviously the long here. Still, really nothing there. You'd have to wait for a nice cross. You're hooking up past the negative 100. Has not closed over yet. It's just kind of teasing the area. Our median time frame is at the 0 line. This is definitely not a long that I'm interested in. I'm really going to wait for this to set up short, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on.
And that short that you're looking for is a 50, 14.
No, it would be a 50-34 because here you have the setup already. This is a long, but I'm anticipating it to fail and then set up short. And it would be a 50-34. I guess if it crossed at the same time, it would probably be both. But because right now the 50 CCI is over 0, I'm looking at it as a 50-34. Here you go. There's the failure. Okay. Well, for example, here, and I like this trade, but I'm gonna walk you through it rather than focus on my own trading. Okay. As I said, you have your 500 is your confirmation chart. You got a long setup here. So even if you want to go counter trend, and that's fine. That's I'm not saying that it's not the right thing. But even if you want to go counter trend, at least you want to see your confirming chart set up as well. When your confirmation chart does not set up, it should always make you think suspect of the move that's setting up on the tick chart. Okay? So like I said, if we had taken the long, not only would we have gotten stopped out, but we would not be prepared for the short. So we would be missing out on 2 levels. The luxury of using this and trading with the trend is that now, like I said, we're anticipating the failure. So we're sitting there, we're ready, we know in our minds what we want to happen. We know exactly the scenario that we're looking for. And it's very comforting to see it actually take place, because this is what you anticipated. So you have a higher level of certainty that the trade will go your way. You understand what I'm saying? It hasn't triggered yet. We still have this bar. But, let's see what happens. And you have to.
As soon as the cross the 50.
I wait. Some people jump in, but, as I said before, sometimes you can get a cross, and then by the time the bar closes, it looks like a ZLR, and that would not feel good to be in. So you want to wait. And I said, if you're far away from the 34 EMA and you're not comfortable with that, put it a couple of ticks better than the open, that's fine. The only thing you risk is missing the trade. But, most of the times when you get in a trade, you're not green right off the go.
Okay, so would you have, in theory, gone at the open of this current bar that's trading?
This bar that's printing now is the trigger bar. This is the bar that's bringing the 50 below 0.
No, I put the bar.
No, Mark, do you have crosshairs?
Yes.
Can you put the crosshairs on this bar?
Here?
See?
No, the next bar is already closed.
It's not closed yet. Now it's closed. Now it's closed.
The green one's painted.
Right, now that just started painting.
No, that's so, we're already off onto a wood bar.
Which one's your entry bar?
Okay, I can't see.
There's a,
Okay, go to the following bar.
this is the.
That's the trigger bar, I'm sorry. That's the trigger bar. The following bar closed the CCI below 0. That's your trigger. So technically, what's the high of this bar?
This bar?
Yeah. 678.50 would have been your entry on the short, okay? Sorry, 'cause I have a hard time. This is very new to me to watch my charts on a big screen. I usually am watching them on a monitor, and it's much more crisp.
The live bar, yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, it's you know, some getting used to watch it on your screen. 678.50 would have been the entry.
I'm just changing the live bar color to something darker.
Thank you.
So you can see it.
Thank you. I'm blind as a bat.
No, it doesn't show up well on the projector. How's that? You see the red bar? Does that show up?
No, not at all. It looks just like the black bar.
Okay.
Make it pink.
That won't show up.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't think. Yeah.
You mentioned that brown paint won't show up.
Hang on a second.
Make it red.
Yuri, just make it black.
Pick a color that shows up well.
Yellow, try yellow, see if that shows up.
Yeah. Or lime green, either way. Go ahead, yeah, lime. I'm not going to make all of you sick in the process. Lime green, yeah, that's green. Okay, obviously, Mark doesn't know his greens. Yes, that one.
Different on my screen.
Okay.
You guys, we promised you that you get to see the two of us argue. So.
Okay, so what's happening here now is your CCI is testing the 0 line. This is possibly a 5034, the first ZLR after the 5034, which is also a permissible entrance, or quite possibly we could, okay, here we go. Let's see.
Okay, now what I'm going to do is take out, since that two-step failed, because it couldn't get through the resistance, I'm going to take out that support and add a new target based on this swing.
What we want to watch for again, I'm repeating it because I just can't emphasize how important it is. We're going to watch for the 50 CCI here, wherever you're trading. We want it to cross the negative 100 line. If it does not cross the negative 100 line, you're in you have 5 ticks in your trade, you have to make a decision. Do you want to take, if you're trading 3 lots, 2 off and get your, your +5 and break even on your runner, or do you want to just get out, or do you want to just set your stop? The only time I move my stop before I hit my first target is when we get in a situation like that and it starts flattening. I will lock in at least my commission. Here we go. We're at the negative 100. Let's see it pull through. You have your 500 also at the negative. That's your confirming chart. It's confirming what the 233 tick is doing. Your median time frame, your 1,000 volume, is also at the negative 100 line.
And we're
we'd
at the 786 support
We'd like
of
to
the
get
swing.
right down here.
The 786 again is usually the make or break on the trade. If that breaks, you're generally good to go to targets. I mean, more than generally, it's almost invariably. But that is the make or break on this swing. Again, that was done by taking this low to this high, the current swing. And that gave us some retracement support and the extension targets.
And you've made, on our simulated trade here, our first target. Now our stop is break even +1 on our runners. Now, look at the 3,000. That cross that took me out of the trade looks like a 100-line reject. That's why you have to make a determination in your trading plan in advance. Are you going to wait for the cross or the close? So you don't have to make that decision mid-trade. Yay!
We broke that 786, and I'm telling you, it's like 90% of the time on the shorter term swings. Shorter term swing, I don't mean a swing trade, but shorter term targets. When you break the 786, you generally at least get the 1272 target.
Okay, our T2 would be normally, it would be 7650, but Mark has a first target here at 7628, which would be 7630, so I think we can, safely take our T2 off there, and what we'll do is we'll, again, hold the third contract till our exit criteria has been met. Now, if some of you are only trading with 2 contracts, you might want to just use the second one to manage it rather than have a specified target. If you're trading 1 contract, my thought is, and I might be wrong, but I would think that maybe trying to get an automatic target for your 1 contract and not worrying about where the market goes after, just to get the experience and the feeling of doing the trades and build your confidence level a bit. It's much easier to trade 1 contract when you have a specific target than to try and just let it run unless you have a very detailed criteria on how you're going to go about that. I find that it's better to take an automatic target.
We just also have to keep an eye, though, on the 15-minute support, and that's a very wide cluster. Usually, the levels cluster together more tightly, and let's see how this looks if we maximize it, actually. Yeah, I wouldn't even call this a cluster, but I'm leaving all the levels up because each one is actually important in this particular scenario. We are just about to enter the window, though, for potential timing low. So that's why I'm saying pay attention to what's going on here too.
Okay. So let's see if we've got. Okay, what we're getting here on the 133 tick is a bounce on the negative 100. It looked like it was crossing. It didn't. You'd be out your second contract on this. Okay. Your stop is at break even. You could take both off if you have 3. Generally, I would be out my second and again, letting the runner do what it will. But this is definitely something, if you're short, that should raise an alarm in your head. Okay, and also too, like Mark's saying, on the higher time frame, we're at this area here, and we're coming into a window for timing low. So you don't want to overstay your welcome. It was a nice trade, and again, we have plenty more day left. So you have your runner on, you're out your second on that. Let's see what happens.
Is it safe to say that the 14 is only used for that 1 entry trade, and using the 50s really to make your decision?
For me, yes. I just find that the 14 is too volatile. And when I started trading CCI, obviously I was in Woody's CCI room, and the goal there, and this is back in the Pal Talk days, was most of the people that were in there were scalpers. So the 14 made sense because it didn't keep you in a trade for a long time. There used to be a time where you'd have an auto 10 and it was this huge deal because it's, wow, auto 10 with the 14. And you're just not, and it's my opinion only, and it's no to discredit anybody, but the 14, in my opinion, will not allow you to stay in a long trend. It just won't, not if you're following the rules, because if you're getting a zero line cross, you're out. If the 14's below, above the 0 line for 6 bars, you're looking for longs. Now, would you want to be looking for longs on this chart? Using the 6 bar, you know what I mean? That's just how I look at it. If you were scalping, sure. But if you're trying to get a point, 2 points, 3 points, then it's not going to help you do that. So it depends on what kind of trader you are. If you're a scalper, yeah, it's ideal. You get in and out, but not for suspended moves. Okay, are we breaking anything? No, 76.4.
If you and I were scalping, we wouldn't have time to make fun of each other.
We're probably rolling on the floor fist fighting. But so, that's my theory on the 14. So I'm not really looking at the 14 unless I'm in a 50-14 trade. Other people like to keep it up. They like to use it for the slings. Now, I don't have a 6 CCI, but when I'm at home, on my desktop, sometimes I'll throw it up because there are people in my room that watch it, so I like to be able to call them out, even though I don't personally trade them, and I disclose that.
And that's that slingshot trade?
Right, but what I have noticed that trading the slingshot is when you get a slingshot set up and say, hypothetically speaking, you have a 50 CCI under the negative 100 line and you get a slingshot short on a high time frame, those suckers run for like a point and a half. If you watch the 50 and you watch slingshots, you always want to watch the slingshots that appear with the 50 CCI having activity at the 100 lines. They usually seem to sling, you know, so.
Mark,
Yes.
when you have a bunch of lines over there, what we doing over the lower right-hand chart
Yeah.
that are not creating a real cluster?
Yes.
Is that kind of indicative of chop time?
No, it's chop. To me, chop is better defined when I can clearly have levels on both sides of the market. It's just that yesterday was an uptrend, but it was kind of flat. Also, it was very, you know, okay, I'm going to go up. I don't really want to, but I will. So what happened was the lines, the retracements, and the symmetry ended up kind of far apart for today. The swing highs just were very, very close together on the 15-minute. This doesn't specifically say chop to me. It just says that there, you know, as Yuri even mentioned yesterday, the risk of putting up too many lines is it looks really nice because, yeah, one of them is going to hold. And that's the biggest complaint about this fib work. When you have all these different lines, yeah, something's going to hold. Usually I would get rid of most of what you're seeing as support on the 15-minute chart. Just in this case, because yesterday was kind of weird, those levels are important to watch, and particularly because we're coming into a timing low. Now, if we pass the timing low and we kind of just skitter along this support, I'm going to reevaluate that chart and see if we really need all of that stuff. Because frankly, I don't like that many. It's too much stuff there for me on the 15-minute. Certainly making me feel antsy, though, about shorting at this point, because they're very strong levels. There are overlaps on each of those levels and the timing low. I can actually put some resistance, though, on the 15-minute now. If you notice, there's a swing low here, and I can take the swing low. Let me maximize this chart for a second. I can take the swing low and go to the high and project from the low for some resistance that we'd want to see maintain for the concept of a downtrend to remain intact on the 15-minute chart, the longer-term intraday. So if it bounces back and forth, it's just range-bound. If one side or the other breaks, I'd be very happy if either side breaks.
Well, since we have a runner short, it would be nice if the...
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, as Denise said, you know, I should really focus on getting rid of the stuff under the market because we have a short going.
With your symmetry, do you only use the one? You never use 618?
I use 1618 when the market is really moving rapidly.
No, just 618.
No,
Symmetry.
no,
You just use
never.
one.
Just one. Yeah, I don't really find that holds. I use the 618 in the retracements, of course, but.
Okay, on your 1,000 volume, your 50 CCI is doing a negative 100 line reject here. So based on that, I'm expecting my 233 tick to cross back down below the negative 100 for another try at cracking the larger time frame work. Again, on your 3,000, you also had a reject there. Typically, on these time frames, when you get that reject, it means a new low. Doesn't mean, you know, an absolute breakdown, but it means at least by a few ticks you'll register a new low. So let's just see if that happens. Yeah.
If you were going to use an alarm system, where would you put it on these?
An alarm system?
Well,
Like an alert system to tell you that your trades are going off?
Or would it be useful at all to put an alert, since you're watching
Well,
so many charts?
I don't know. I mean, like I said, if you think it's too many charts for you to watch, get rid of the 233 tick and use a 500 volume in its place. I mean, I just prefer to have the two confirming. I'm just that's just my personality. You don't have to. You can get rid of the 250 volume. If you're not going to do any 3,000 volume swing work, you don't really need it. Get rid of it. You know, you won't have these charts up because you can run your levels on whatever time frames you choose. It's just that we have so many charts because Mark, you know, just because we trade together, it doesn't mean that he wants to take his triggers off of my charts, and that's fine. You can, these are applicable to whatever time frames you deem right for yourself. This is just a suggestion.
Yeah, I think I can't stress that strongly enough, that one of the things, I mean, Denise and I have taught trading techniques to a lot of people, and one of the main things that we see people focusing on too much is, what time frame are you doing that on? What time frame? What? It's like you really need to find the chart that calls to your eye. Everyone's perception is different.
I mean, for giggles, later on, we can just start throwing up different time frames and looking for the trades. You know, this is just what speaks to me. When I first started doing this, I used a 3-minute chart, a 13-minute chart, an 8-minute chart. You know, I used minute charts, and then it always became this issue of, well, should they be all sessions? Should they be regular sessions? Then, you know, so I would put like the all session on, and then I would get like some kind of crazy pre-market stuff, and then I would put regular session on, and my CCI would open up here, and it would take, you know, 45 minutes for it to be legible for me to enter a trade. So I said, you know what? Volume charts will eliminate all that guesswork. The bars will simply print when there is enough volume in the market. Actually, I heard Yuri discuss them, and it's something that I wrote down to go home and further investigate. I would definitely like to take a look at that, sure. I always like to look at new things, you know.
Are you trading something other than the Russell?
Yep, I trade 4 markets. I trade the ER, the Euro, the bond, and oil. I have usually, you know, more screen space, and I'm usually not, you know, it's like I have bonds up, and we did prepare bond charts for anybody who, you know, is getting bored watching the ER and wants to switch over to bonds for a second. We can certainly do that, but I just assume that most of you are trading the ER. The QM, I only use 2 time frames for that. I use a 500 volume and 89 tick. That's it. Bonds, it's 3 time frames, 250 volume, 1,000 volume, 3,000. That's it. The Euro is kind of an animal of a different color. I tend to edit the rules a little bit just because it's so squirrely, you know, and I hate getting stopped out just because it's doing this. So I tend to put my limit orders in close to the 34 EMAs. I'm very stringent, very, very picky about seeing you know, a clear trend. If it looks like it's just kind of like the ER, if it's kind of going sideways, I'll take a trade anyway, because, you know, I know that people will look at the angle of the 34 EMA, and generally that's a correct approach. But because the 50-34 trade is a change in trend chain, you know what I'm saying, a change in trend trade, typically what will happen is you'll get a consolidation which will flatten out the 34 EMA because it's consolidating for that change. So to say that you're only going to enter when it's angled to a 30-degree angle, you would, you know, it's just no.
I just wanted to point out something funny. A few of my friends were planning to get up early this morning to trade bonds, and I said clearly last night, I am not going to be here at 6 in the morning. So I prepared a bond chart. This is our bond workspace, and I prepared a bond chart and emailed it. Emailed it out to a few people, and I typed on the chart because there was no way I was going to be here. Careful with shorts, major timing off last swing for termination of decline. And look what happened this morning while I was sleeping. So it's nice to know that I can contribute to the profits of other people who mostly also didn't wake up in time.
All of them. John's here.
Yeah, well, Perry, I said I wasn't going to be here.
No, it was me. 5:30. Yes. Yes. Yeah, I use volume charts. I found that the minute charts were just killing me. I mean, they were just cutting me to death. So he asked if I use on the Euro volume charts, and I don't even, to be honest with you, I don't even care to use a tick chart on the Euro, except if I'm trading at night. If I'm trading at 8 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night where the volume is, I mean, I'll die before I get a volume bar, I will switch to a tick chart and trade it. But for early morning or during the day, I don't even like tick charts. I like volume. 500, same thing, 500 volume, 1,000 volume, 3,000 volume. And I do have a 133 tick up, it's just habit. I can't seem to let go of it yet, but the volume is what I focus on.
Good stuff happening here.
Oh, cool. Okay. Back to our, you know, that's the point though. If I was in this trade, we would not be able to discuss bonds or anything else, you know, because I would be like this, you know, he'd be looking at my back. But great, see what happened here. We broke a little bit here. We were at the target. We're still going to hold, I mean, we have no reason that, I mean, Mark might get mad at me, but I like to look into the future. And I really think that because we're under the 100 line everywhere we look, that we can keep that runner and hold for at least the first target. And once we start getting closer to the first target, we'll reevaluate CCI and see if we're going to be bold enough to take the second target. And that's what we do. As we approach each target, we're going to look at CCI and evaluate. Is there something, is there divergence at that target? Is there a hook? Is there, you know, that's what you have to do when you get there.
We're in a bit of low timing now. I'm not, and this is not, no, see, she frowns at me, and you should see what she types to me. We're in the Hotcom room. It's really bad. She thinks I'm such a naysayer. It's a warning. And as I've been saying the past couple of days, we found that when you have the timing and a price level coming together, look to the shorter term time frames and keep your eyes open for a divergence there. And that's how sometimes we've taken really great trades and gotten out to the tick or just about to the tick. So I'm not saying to get out of the trade now. I'm not saying to get out of the trade because of timing. I'm saying let CCI really yell at you with a divergence, possible 100 minus 100 line cross. Definitely stay ultra sharp for that because of the price level and the timing. I'm sorry, Summer.
You answered it. That was fine. It's just that the 15.
Usually, like I've been saying, I mean, I don't like that 15-minute chart. I usually would not have so many lines underneath it. And you know, as Denise has been saying, we have a little bit of a space constraint here. If you can pretend, if this looks like too many charts, just get rid of these two charts. I mean, she's only really looking at 4, and I'm just working on these 2. But ordinarily, it wouldn't be scrunched together this way.
Exactly. Mark's charts are normally not on my screen. So what I do with Mark is that when we're in the Hotcom room, he's a mod, so obviously he can post a chart, and I just minimize it. And when I need to see what I'm looking at, and that goes for any of you who are trying to learn how to do this. On occasion in the room, you know that Mark does post charts. So instead of getting annoyed that it's flashing up on your screen, minimize it and use it. And you can compare your own fib work to his. It's a good reference, you know.
It's a free room.
And he's also there to look at your chart to say, oh no, it's all wrong, and shoot you down and send you back to. Okay, so here we go. This is what I'm saying. We're approaching the 3-minute target for Mark. But now, can anybody tell me, looking at CCI, is this a place you want to get out? Or is this some place that you think we can hold on for maybe here? Just anybody have an opinion? Hold, okay. All right, that's good, great. That's perfect. That's exactly what you want to, exactly, perfect. Don't look at me. Yeah, we've met a couple of years ago, and it was instant friendship, and then we just started, I mean, he did something totally different from what I did, so I was just like, oh yeah, we'll just be friends. And when he started kind of sharing his charts with me, and I'd be like, hey, wait a second, look at this, and you know, and we'd start going back and forth. I'd be like, that's odd, or that's an anomaly, or this, and then we just started like, you know, coming together and trying to get a few projects going, and we said, you know, this is really neat. It's a nice, it's really nice.
I was still strictly using 14.6.
And I said, oh, get rid of that.
We went to a trade room together in Chicago, and I was like, what's that on your chart? She's like, it's the 50 CCI. And I wasn't ready for it then, but then when she came back to me and said, look at how this reacted in relation to your price levels for the fib work, it turned me on to it big time. And then since we were friends, when she moderated in Woody's, you know, obviously I went in there and I listened, and it was a match made in
hell.
I'll let you fill in there.
Okay, so 75.50. I love Mark.
I can see why.
I do. I love him, my children love him, everybody loves him, so.
No, not everybody.
Well, everybody who matters. Okay, we're 3 ticks away from the target on the 3-minute. We're also coming into this little overlap of support. I still say CCI is under the 100. We continue to hold. If we're going to get a bounce, it's going to be in this area within a few ticks from now. So we'll see. Let me just.
That is so vibrating.
Yes.
2,000 volume, is that comparable maybe to a 13-minute?
Yeah, it is actually. It's probably more, probably closer to a 13-minute. Let me take a peek at some. Yeah, it looks similar to a 13-minute. Actually, if you're doing swing trading work, and I'm not going to confuse you all by mentioning another time frame, but if you just want to focus on the swings and not the intraday, put up a 13 and a 3,000, and don't trade unless they're in agreement. Don't take the swings, because it's weird. When they're not in agreement, you often get like the battle of the 34 EMAs, the same thing as Mark's support and resistance. Price just kind of gets stuck. And oftentimes, the best swing trade will be the one where they're starting to turn into alignment. So if you're interested in swinging, you might want to just kind of put it up on a different workspace and just, take a look at it. Yep. Okay, starting to get, you hit the target, and what's happening is it's not going through. We're starting to get a hookup at the negative 100 lines. I say we still continue to hold. We're up very nicely. We can afford to wait for a bar to close. We have that reject. Did we get a new low?
675.50 is the lowest.
Okay, so I still say that we have the negative 100 line reject on the higher time frame. I really feel with those that we'll get lower than 675.50. Although this is the bar that hits 675.50, I can't see, Mark. Which bar hits 675.50? Any time frame, the low.
2 bars back on the 3-minute. And now
That was the low.
Yes.
Okay. See, I think we're going to go, based on, I'm not saying my opinion, based on the CCI, I feel that we're going to go lower.
Yeah, those 100 line bounces generally bring new lows for us.
Had you been constantly like me and this
Uh-huh.
I'm down a ways, stay on the 250V where you have a 14 spike right there.
Right here?
Yeah.
Well, that was it. Well, you could have kind of pushed it and said, well, it hit the 100 line. That's a 50-14-0 and got in. Typically, I like to see them like that, like actually cross. But there are lots of people who use that. I would say that if you're going to take that, I would not take it unless it's actually touched the 100 line. Don't use like, oh, plus 75, close enough. I mean, if you're desperate to get into the trend, you can do it.
Oh, so you wouldn't have waited for that 14 to cross below 0. You're saying, no, you would have gotten up at the end of term plus 100.
No, what I'm saying is he's asking about the pattern, about the setup, and asking me if that's, here we go, new low. All right, he's asking me about if that's actually a reasonable setup, because typically a 50-14 is going to do this. It's going to cross above the 100, make air, and then come back down. This was only a test of, which, even on a 14, the 100 lines are support and resistance. So you could have looked at it and said, that's in the spirit of a 50-14. It hit 100 line resistance. I'm going to take it because I want in on the trend, and you would have been right.
Yeah, but you take it when the 14
Yep, same principle. I mean, if you were bold and you were saying, well, it's really a rejection of the 100 line, I'll take the trade and get out if something happens and it spikes and goes through. You would use that as your barometer. Okay, so we got our new low based on the 100 line reject on our higher time frame. Let's see if we can go lower. And like I said, on your smaller time frames, there's been no reason to exit that runner. And these are the kind of trades that I keep stressing over and over again. Let's not, for me, I'm not going to waste my time trying to take the iffy trades. I have idea of what I want to see, and these are the ones that I feel are going to give us the most out of the market.
So if you didn't want to scalp,
Mhm.
what volume chart would you use?
If I did want to scalp,
Did not want to scalp.
well, what I use, because I don't scalp.
You would just, oh, you scalp on,
I don't ever scalp.
scalping on the tick and the 250?
No, I mean, if you call 1 point target a scalp, I mean, I consider a scalp like somebody who's entering the market with the intention of making 4 ticks and getting out in 4 ticks. Like they have a predetermined little, which, you know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that. Just for me, in my mentality, I can't handle the pressure of constantly being in and out of the market. For me, the less time I spend in the market, the better I am to myself and to my account. You know.
The less time you spend making decisions.
Yeah, because, you know, you see how long it takes me to make a decision. If I was scalping, you know.
I'm sorry. No, I just wanted to mention, just a reminder that so far that 3-minute extension, the support is still holding.
Right.
And we are just about to get into the center of the timing cluster.
Okay, so now knowing that, you can make a decision, okay, we're getting into this, you know, let's just take our money and go. Mark often can't stand me because I'll say, well, I'm staying, and then I often pay the price. But really, I just feel strongly that I'm going to hang out with the runner. Some of you might say, okay, that's enough for me, I'm out. I have 2.5 points on this runner. I mean, I'm happy.
I don't mind when you stay in. What I mind is if you took another short right now.
Oh, no, I would never do that. Yeah, and that's, again, because we're testing these 100 lines, and every time that we get a rejection, I'm thinking about, well, we just got another 100-line rejection, we should get another bounce down. So the 100 lines are like these just pulse things, and they just go like this, and every time it bounces, it just goes a little lower and bounces a little lower. So that's why I like to watch those 100 lines, and if we cross up, and knowing what I know about Mark's work, you know, yeah, sure, I'm going to get out.
I'm saying the likelihood of it crossing is higher.
Right.
Basically, that's it.
Right.
You know.
So if we cross, then what's happening is Mark's work is confirmed, and we're done with the trade. You know? And here we go. I mean, we're at the 100 line now. Again, do we wait for the cross, or do we use a close? Based on his work, I would say if we get a little higher pulse, we don't need to stick around and wait for the close. We'll just get out.
See, this is where I would go down to the 233 tick chart in this work. When we have price and time on the longer term coming together, you'll notice I don't have a swing into the low on the 3-minute where a high has been taken out. But if I go to the 233, I can already make support levels by taking that swing high, which has been violated, and projecting from the new high. And that is actually the first time I can do that within this downtrend since the open today. So that's telling me that we're beginning to see the possibility of an uptrend.
Okay. So it's pretty clear you're crossing, so you get out there. Worst case, if you really are a diehard and you want to hold on, 3-minute resistance. If you use that, you would still lock in 8 ticks on your runner. Me, I'm gone.
It's a good trade.
Yep.
What was that?
You know, so that's 2 trades today. Both yielded, we both got our first target and our second target. Our runner on the first one was a break even, and our runner here was a plus 1.9. So, you know, that's it. We've done, you know, it's 2 trades. It was pretty relaxed. And, you know, that's how we want to see it. Okay.
on the trades you've made, I was in the washroom. You just closed them out. How many contracts did you have on? 3 of them?
3.
And then you put another 3 on when I was out, you went short again.
Right, so there was 2 trades. The first one, I physically, let me turn this off. Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Before you do anything in terms of the law, at this point, you're looking, you would want the 3,000 volume to be above.
Okay, I'm not going to be too crazy with that. At the very least, if you were going to start looking for longs, I would want to see this over negative 100. Again, because the crossover at least will indicate to you that the downtrend has at least paused. And you might be able to get, so typically what I'll do is once that crosses, and it has to close in this instance, once that happens, I will start looking at my smaller time frames, and as long as my, time frames are in agreement, I'll start biting on the long side in this case. I will, yeah. But what I'll also do, one thing to note, is that if I am in a long, I watch the higher time frame 34 EMA, and we'll start to try and scale out around there just in case it acts as resistance. Okay.
Denise?
Yeah.
If I rent this, it says I can't share this in a public place. How am I going to post my chart for you or Mark to look at?
I guess let me see.
You're not allowed.
Well, because you're not selling, sharing, or transferring the product.
But it says, let's just
Right, but that is really, if you're going to try and publish and distribute the charts
for profit
or for a software issue. I mean, you're like Mark. Obviously, he uses these charts and he posts them in our room all the time. Because he's showing his work. He's not advertising this software. You'll get locked up. No, I think it's fine.
Do they have computers in jails now?
Yeah.
Would be uninterrupted.
I don't know if you have like a high-speed internet though. Yep. Yeah.
50 is at the zero line, if it crossed
Mhm.
above the zero line. If you were just looking at that chart,
Okay.
is that when you would
Well,
enter, or would you
if
look
that were
for-
going to set up a long, what would probably happen if it was a good long? Because, and we're looking at the 14 here, you would probably get a bounce off the 100 line,
Okay, just
like it's doing now. Right.
So what would be your entry, and let's just for sake of discussion, presume that the 3,000 was over the
Okay,
100
yep.
line. You know, how would you really, because it's already blown past the 34.
Right. So you would have, now this
Wait
is
for a retracement.
the tricky part about the 250V because it's such a small time frame and it's quick. Most people who trade this as their primary chart will take the spirit of the pattern and place their entry as price is crossing through the 34 in hopes that it's going to close like this and just take that chance. Some people will wait for the pattern to close and try to gauge the distance between the 34 EMA and current price and put a limit order in the middle. You know, so there's two ways of approaching that. So you could do that. I mean, you could just say, okay, this is setting up. I have a strong 14 CCI. I'm just going to take the long as price is crossing through, and then now obviously that would have been a smart move, and you'll put your stop on a failure of the 34 EMA. So it would be low, point-wise, it would be low risk because if you're getting in there and you're going to get out there, what are you risking? 3-4 ticks? You know.
Is the failure, though, again, it's not a close, you're just saying price change.
Well, that's what you would have to decide. If you're on a 250V chart where you're getting, I mean, if Mark maximized it, you see quite a bit of setups. Are you going to, because you're taking that many trades, are you going to wait for a close or are you going to wait for a fail? You know, and it comes back to what's in your plan, how many ticks are you up, you know, what's your expectation?
I was asked if, I don't mean to interrupt, but while nothing fascinating is happening on the charts, someone asked me to go over how the timing was determined.
Go
because
for it. I'm gonna get a drink.
it held. Now, on the 15-minute, by the way, we do have this symmetry resistance at 679.10, so we don't consider the trend, the longer-term trend, reversing unless that breaks. But it certainly held enough to give us a reason to get out of any shorts, which is exactly what we really use it for, not to immediately look for longs, but to say, okay, it's time to get out. If you look at the 15-minute chart, I used, again, the two timing tools. The 2-point tool, which is called timelines. It's right under the multi-symmetry tool. And I started off by connecting two of the recent highs. Again, the rules are, as I put in the workbook, you use the 2-point tool, you connect outstanding highs to highs, lows to lows, lows to highs, and highs to lows. It sounds like a nursery rhyme, but it's really simple. Yesterday was kind of, you know, that uptrend, but kind of not outstanding highs or lows, so I only had a few points to work with. I connected this high to this high, and it gave us extensions in time forward. I connected this low to the major high yesterday, gave us some extensions here, and then I used the 3-point tool and found a prior decline because I was looking for termination of a decline. So I found a prior decline, and I took the high of that decline to the low and projected from the current major high on the chart. And what I got was an overlap, remember, between within plus or minus 1 bar. So in other words, 11, 11:15, 11:30 is focusing on 11:15, the 11:15 bar. And no other timing ratios clustered together that way. So that's why it wasn't like, well, it could be here, it could be here, it could be here. I just chose the highs and lows, and the tool showed me a particular clustering. And that's why I said that's potential timing for a low. And when it coincides with price work, it's particularly strong. That price work doesn't have to be on the same chart. What happened was it reacted against the extension that was on the 3-minute chart. Actually, I could have put that on the 15-minute too, but it wasn't necessary. It would have been, if I had taken here this low to this high with the retracement tool, it would have given me the precise extension that's also on the 3-minute because it's the same swing. But you see, there was a target for support, and it coincided with the timing. We could still make new lows, but that was certainly enough of a bounce that we'd want to get out of our shorts. Oh, well, okay. Maybe laundry day.
On that 3-minute chart, just how close time-wise was it to the
Well, the overlap was 11 to 11:30, so but that's why I said the center would be 11:15. So we hit the low at 11:12. Okay. Yeah, sorry, that was the best I could do. You know. Yeah, on the 50. Well, on any chart. Plus or minus 1 bar on any chart, any time frame that you do timing on. Now, the longer the time frame, the more solid the timing is, just as in price work or any indicator on longer term. But the thing about a longer term timing factor is that it's too vague. I mean, if I did a 45-minute chart and it's plus or minus a bar, it's like, okay, sometime this morning there'll be a low. So I think the 15-minute is a happy medium for that. Did you see something?
Starting to possibly get another 50-14-0 on the 233 tick 500 volume, getting a possible ZLR 50 CCI 1000 volume. We pulsed up into the 3-minute support area. 50 CCI on the 3000 is still under the 100 and going flat. If this is to be another bounce, we will get the setups on these charts. I shouldn't say bounce, reject. If that's going to be another 100-line reject, we'll get the setup here, and that'll be, if you're interested in the face of this, well, what we would be hoping for is that event now, this time around, this would break. Okay, because we've tested it quite a few bars.
And so what you're looking for here is the 50 below.
Well, no, what we're looking for is we have our 50 below 0. We have the 14, it peaked above the plus 100, it's coming back down. So we're looking for this to close below 100. If that's to happen, you'll have that 50 will automatically be near the 100 line, so it will be a quick trade, because if it's going to work, it should go through relatively fast. No, you know what? It's opposite. I keep my eyes glued on my 233 tick and 500, and I glance. When I look at the 3000, I just want to know where CCI is in relation to the lines and where price is in relation to the 34 EMA. So it's just kind of a quick assessment. And then I start looking here to make the actual entries. Good. That's okay. Everybody has their own breakthroughs they need to make.
So do you watch this continuously all day?
Yeah.
That's why her eyes are.
They should be stronger. No, actually, but I watch it on 4 markets also. So usually, I'm looking at the bonds today. I said, wow, I missed this, I missed that, I missed, because it's just on one screen, it's just hard to condense everything, but when you have everything laid out nicely,